Thank you so
It's
much.
a real pleasure to meet you in person. I know I've met you before, but it'll be good to know, deeper into what your roles are and who you are. So, probably as I was explaining you when we were meeting in briefly, so we are actually trying to connect with influential Indians in London, how they are actually, adding value to the Indian diaspora as a whole. So, on our research, we found you one of them. So, we are here to know more about you. So, would you like to give a quick intro about who you are, what you do, and I can do that, but I think it'll be better hearing from
Sure.
you directly.
So I'm Pratik. I help companies with their market entry into India, and we run some large communications campaigns across the world as well, which includes running some big corporate events as well. I came here as a teenager and lost my Indian accent quite quickly.
Yeah.
The one thing I noticed about coming to the UK is I was in a Catholic school in Pune,
Hmm.
and coming here, I realized I knew more hymns than anyone in my class here, which I found very surprising because I expected to come here and then everybody else knew some of this stuff better than me. Um, I went to the University of Warwick and did economics,
Okay.
worked in banking for some time, then in consulting for a couple of years in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi in particular, in telecoms. Then I worked in litigation for a few years. So currently, everyone knows about Ukraine and Russian disputes, but they've been going on forever. So I worked on several Ukraine-Russian gas disputes or German-Russian gas disputes. And then I kind of got bored of working for other people.
Okay.
So at some point, I started my own business. I did a lot of charity work for a year. Realized that didn't pay the mortgage, so I had to find some more meaningful thing to do with my billable time. And uh, then I was lucky that my first client was an Indian Chamber of Commerce
Hmm.
called FICCI. So I ran the UK office here for 3.5 years and got to do lots of receptions in Downing Street, once in Buckingham Palace, and then lots of ministers from the centre in India visiting here, hosting them. Then my second project was a body in the UN,
Okay.
and uh, the same day that I got married in Gujarat,
Hmm.
my wife and I met here, but then we went back to Gujarat to get married. On the same day, Tony Blair was launching a report I wrote at the World Economic Forum in Davos.
Okay.
On balance, I think I made the right call to to get married, but looking back, I do miss having not been on the same stage as Tony Blair.
Okay. Brilliant. Brilliant. So that's how you started. So you came as a teenager. When you say teenager, so you came with your parents, maybe, yeah?
That's
Your
right.
your
Yeah,
parents moved here. Okay,
that's
brilliant. Not like many of the other students probably come for grad and then
right.
pick up the career, which is good. You had some decent entry into the country, and you
Yes.
you could kind of find a real path.
Yeah.
I'm feeling privileged today because we're sitting next to British Library, which is an amazing location. Thanks for choosing this location, by the way. So, Pratik, I have seen you doing a lot of work, and I have also involved previously in some of your work. So, let's talk about Bridge India, which is a buzzword in India. A lot of the politicians know about Bridge India and all. But I just wanted to understand. You are the managing director. You are the founder of Bridge India. How did this initiative started? What happened? Like, what made you to think about? I know you
Yeah.
said briefly about like you wanted to do your own stuff,
Hmm.
but why Bridge India? You would have chosen anything in UK.
Yeah. So one of the reasons for all of us to be involved was slightly different, but for me, it was more that uh, there is less and less of a space today for people with different points of view to come together and talk in a way that's respectful. So in politics, particularly in a very transactional politics like India, where people change parties very regularly throughout their career, uh, politics is about how you divide a pie. So I can only win if you lose, and I'm only happy if you're sad.
Hmm.
That's the way elections work. But if you go beyond that, there's an element of saying, if I've lost, I'm okay with losing because I know in 5 years' time I could come back.
Yeah.
So there's a path back, and then that means that as a politician, I would then need to build bridges and meet the other side halfway and retain those relationships. But I think as social media has grown, as people have become more polarized in different societies, starting not just recently, but from the 2008 financial crash, which caused a lot of ruptures,
Yeah.
um, through to the major conflicts we see internationally today, and then in between we've had US wars, we've had overthrows of governments in the Middle East, partly by using Facebook as a mean of communicating with different people. That's all meant that people who are at different ends of the political spectrum, they don't come together as often. So for me, Bridge India was a progressive organization. What progressive means for me is not liberal or not conservative.
Hmm.
Progressive is very much how can you work together with different people to build progress for society. And a key assumption underlying that is I don't have a monopoly on good ideas, and you don't have a monopoly on good ideas.
True. So true.
If we sit together and talk, even if you completely disagree with me, at least there's something somewhere along the line you'll think actually he's not completely stupid. He's got at least one good idea. That's how you build a society. That's how you bring people closer. So it's not a huge network that we have.
Hmm.
We have about 120, 130 members, and then we have other corporate members. The aim is that we get together 2 or 3 times a month. We have these curated events um, where we're able to have some of these conversations. And we've been lucky enough to do that with several ministers from India, likewise from the cabinet here, as well as artists and authors and creatives as well.
Brilliant. So Bridge India is not only a business platform. So it's beyond that. That's what you're saying. You had artists, other people as well. So
Correct.
who are your partners generally? I mean, who do you collaborate with? I mean, what are the kind of initiatives or the events that you do? Would you pick up the more like business inclined events, or it's more of the cultural, bringing really connections between two
Yeah.
nations?
So it was set up as a charity. So the
Okay.
aim is that we're not dependent on one funding source from anywhere. It's
Okay.
only members that fund us, whether individuals and corporate. So a lot of the activity is down to what members want to do. Members will say to us, "I want to do this kind of thing,"
Hmm.
and then we'll support that. We have a lot of former diplomats or former civil servants or even current civil servants that are members. We have people who are from business, so they're founders of companies or they work at senior management levels. We have some academics, we have some students, so it's a wide variety. We have some artists as well.
Hmm.
Um, but the aim is to do things where you can build connections. So if you are doing a dinner, just 15 people, Chatham House rule, which means it's private and you don't discuss it outside.
Hmm.
Um, in that 15 people, if it's with the minister, you probably don't just want business people there, because then you just talk about the boring stuff that you anyway
True.
talk about at
True.
work.
True.
You want to get different types of people involved, and that's where you build some of those connections. Because even with when you bring these people together, you realize that the same problem, 10 different people or 15 different people have a different perspective of how to
True.
tackle
True.
it.
Brilliant. So in terms of like how old is Bridge India? Is like a couple of years or more than that?
So it started, incorporated as charity in June 2019.
Okay.
So we did really well, and then COVID hit, and then we
Brilliant.
did a lot of online activity during COVID. Once COVID finished, we've gone back to the in-person activities. So we do one flagship event a year, which is every summer, uh, and then every month there's 2 or 3 bits of activities. Just last month, I saw on our marketing database a stat that in the newsletters that we send out every week,
Hmm.
9:30 every Monday morning, in the last 12 months, about 114,000 opens have happened in
Brilliant.
those newsletters, and a few thousand clicks. Um, so, uh, so whatever we write, we try and analyze a particular aspect of public policy. I think people do read it.
I'm also your subscriber, by the way,
Okay.
and it's amazing the way I love the newsletter, because it's not very generic as you see a lot of newsletters are, like pick up any random stuff and post it. It's more relevant, it's more current, and it's picking up the right topics at the right level. So which is amazing, and it's not too lengthy as well, which is one more thing of the lot of newsletters. So which is crisp, which is good. So kudos to your team; they do a really good job.
Thank
And in terms of events that we talk about, right, Bridge India. So if we have to really, in the last 5 years that you're being active, if you have to call out, what's your biggest achievement? If I ask you, like, what would that be?
The biggest achievement, so last year we had, so my company organized something called India Week,
Okay.
and then there was a conference called Ideas for India that was in partnership with Bridge India. And there we had about a dozen politicians from across India. We
Okay.
had, I think, 6 political parties represented. We had Raghuram Rajan, the former governor of the RBI, who came from Chicago for this. We had the former finance and IT minister of the state of Telangana that came, KTR. Um, and that was a great forum because you had different sets of people coming together. Usually, with policy events in India, you have just one party or just one set of politicians.
Mm-hmm.
Here as well, you only tend to have, if it's just conservative ministers and just conservatives rather than Labour. Um, and I was glad that we were able to get at least three of the political parties in the UK were present as speakers at different events over those couple of days, and then from India about 6 different parties,
Brilliant.
including from the northeast.
Wow, that's a very good representation. It's not an easy thing to, especially get from northeast. It doesn't happen a lot, which is a good thing. But my curiosity is like, I agree, a lot of these people are coming and speaking, but the curiosity is what happens next. I know they come, they speak, they probably give their bhashans like they're politicians. They're very good with long speeches. But would anything materialize? Something happens after this?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. So, um, in public affairs or public diplomacy, one of the things that's really important is if you are a stakeholder with multiple interest groups,
Mm-hmm.
it's important for you to engage everyone and often.